recorder's running?
Yeah, all the cell phones off? I just thought I missed you because the building is a toy. Okay, we're on.
Okay. This is the Tuftonboro Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, July 24th. Can we all stand, face the flag, and
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to everybody on a mid-summer's afternoon. The first order of business is public input.
Can I ask a question instead of commenting? As staff to the planning board, I know there's an agenda item later on the agenda, and I know it's the board of discretion's, it's at the discretion of the board of selectmen to move agenda items. Can you have public comment after that? Because there might be questions that I have as staff to the select board as a whole.
We'll be glad to have under other business, we have a public session in case something comes up that wasn't planned.
Oh, so we can ask questions then?
Sure.
Thank you.
If nobody else has anything. I have a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to say publicly just a word of thanks to Jack for helping me with a driveway application. I had to put in a culvert on my property and he was very helpful. And Jim also was very prompt in coming to look and tell me what I needed to get. So thank you to both of them. So it's three things. So second is a question for Karen. Are the invoices for SAWYER available yet?
No, they should be ready by tomorrow.
Okay, I'll come in tomorrow then. And then third,
Excuse me.
I have pretty serious concerns about the way you're dealing with non-public meetings. And I think that you should try harder to operate within the law. The public minutes for the July 3rd meeting, the public meeting, read that Selectman Markson moved to enter non-public session per RSA 91A3 Roman numeral 2A to discuss a personnel issue. But Bill didn't actually cite the specific subparagraph. And you can see that if you watch the video, which is at tuftonboro.net. And it's a violation of RSA 91A3 Roman numeral 1B, which reads, any motion to enter non-public session shall state on its face the specific exemption under paragraph 2, which is relied upon as foundation for the non-public session. So I'm sure that that was just an oversight, and that moving forward, we'll cite the specific paragraph. The minutes for that non-public session, which was gone into under 91A3 Roman numeral 2A, those minutes read, the selectmen discussed various personnel issues. But that subparagraph, 2A, states you can only go into non-public for that paragraph for the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him or her. So it does not allow you to discuss various personnel issues, only the specific issues that are described in the paragraph. Furthermore, there's another part of the law which I forgot to write down here that says that the minutes for a non-public meeting must clearly state all decisions and votes that were reached during the non-public meeting. So moving forward, the minutes really need to be more specific than the selectmen discussed various personnel issues. And I would hope that you would actually go back and amend those minutes, because those minutes are clearly in violation of the law. Especially since it's pretty clear that during that meeting you discussed whether or not to reappoint Chris to the planning board, and that's not an allowable exception for a non-public meeting. So you really need to change those minutes to reflect what actually happened.
I'm not sure I made that leap, but we'll certainly review it. We can
Well,
go
you didn't discuss.
We can go into non-public to discuss the working habits, the working conditions, the working types that any employee does. And we can talk about that employee and how that employee interacts with the rest of the employees or with the town in general. We can do all of that under the law in non-public and not make a decision. We can have a discussion without taking a vote.
You could have a discussion without having a vote or making a decision.
Right.
Under that paragraph, you can only talk about the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of a public employee. And Chris is not,
Continue reading the sentence where it says,
or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him or her, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted.
right. So under a number of different words in that sentence could fall a conversation about an employee that we may want to have that doesn't involve compensation.
Right, but not
doesn't
various
involve-
personnel issues. It has to be specific.
Excuse me, could we have one person speak at a time, please? Okay?
So if we were to, you want us to delineate every aspect of the conversation, is that your position?
I think you need to,
Because at
In
that,
order to
if
be-
we were to do that, we're not going to be able to release any of these minutes when it comes to employees.
right, that's another issue. The law only allows you to withhold the disclosure of non-public meetings for specific reasons if it'll affect somebody's reputation, and there are a couple other specific things. So I also think that rather than coming out of non-public and, as a matter of course, sealing those minutes, you need to specifically state why it is that you're withholding disclosure in order to be in compliance with the law. Furthermore, it's troubling that last week you on 2 different occasions tried to withhold minutes from me that were public, that had never been sealed.
Well, you may have felt as though we were trying to withhold them from you, but that wasn't the case. The case was that we felt that a review of legal opinion fell under legal consultation, whether the lawyer was here or not. So we didn't go through the exercise of actually sealing those minutes. Did you get the minutes ultimately?
I got the minutes because I did not accept your
Well, whether you accepted it or not is immaterial to me. What's material is you got the minutes.
The issue is if
after-
I didn't know the
Folks,
law,
Folks,
All right.
I would have accepted that you weren't giving me the minutes, which was illegal. This board has a long history of not following the law. And you, Chip, do a lot better. 2 of you, I have issues, board-wise. You just need to actually read the law and follow it. You have not been following the law for a long time, and it's a problem.
In that particular case, you brought up a question. We were taking one position, you took a different position. That's how this all works, Max. You took a different position than we did, so those minutes became available. Had you
Those
taken
minutes
that,
were always
are we
available
gonna
because
let
your
me talk?
position was
I let you
illegal.
finish, okay? If you took that same position today, a week later, or 2 weeks later, however long it's been, we would have to review our decision once again. So there was no gun to your head to get that decision, your position put out there. So we took one position that you took issue with. That's fine. That's how this operates. You know, we're going to make decisions based upon our best understanding of the law. You're going to bring up issues that might question that. So the dialogue begins.
You know, Chip, one of the things I really appreciate you is that you will actually have this dialogue. And so thank you for that. Because sometimes I don't agree with you, but at least I know where you're coming from, and we can have an honest dialogue. Whereas these two just file lawsuits against people, and that's not helpful.
But that's
Furthermore, if you discussed Chris Sawyer in non-public session, that's illegal.
I'm not going to, I honestly am old enough not to remember what we did 2 weeks ago sometimes. So I'm not certain that that's the case, but if it were the case, I think we could have a long discussion about whether it was illegal or legal. We made no decisions during that period of time, but we did discuss individuals who work here. And we have to have the latitude to go into non-public to do those discussions. Or
I understand that. I'm just asking that you actually follow the law.
Yeah, I think we try our best.
And I think that you're trying to, and I think that you can do a better job.
Of course we can.
And that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. Absolutely. And we, on every occasion, attempt to follow the law as it's written and has been interpreted. Do we fall short sometimes? I'm sure we do. But it does get more than a little tiring to have every instance where there's a difference of opinion by somebody raised as evidence that the selectmen are willfully, and I've seen this word from an individual in this room on numerous occasions, willfully violating the law. So where there's a difference of opinion between what this board does and what an individual requests or thinks, that isn't willful. And just because that individual says something's willful doesn't mean that it's willful.
Are you talking about Guy or about Steve? Why all the secrecy?
I'm not talking, I don't feel that it necessarily is appropriate to bring the individual's name out. All I'm saying is that when you look through a lens that everything that doesn't meet the way an individual thinks it ought to operate as being a conspiracy or a willful violation of the law, that's not helpful to the conversation. And it's not helpful to reconciling any differences in understanding.
Can I say something, please? This is not to shut anybody off, but we've gone over the time limit, and by law, we have a public hearing to conduct. And there'll be another opportunity to follow up on this later in the meeting. I'm not trying to shut anybody off, but I guess my job as moderator is to move things along, okay? This is a notice of public hearing, and I'm required to read this notice. On January 9th, 2017, the town of Tuftonboro voted to declare abandoned the Thompson-Moulton Cemetery located on the south side of Mountain Road, 2.9 miles west of Tuftonboro Corner. This declaration is not consistent with the wishes of the cemetery descendants. Accordingly, the town of Tuftonboro intends to reverse the declaration of abandonment for the Thompson-Moulton Cemetery pursuant to the procedure of New Hampshire RSA 289:2. This notice shall be read at the regularly scheduled Selectmen's meeting at 4 p.m. on July 24th, 2017 at the Tuftonboro Town Offices. The public is invited to present testimony. Date, May 8th, 2017. Board of Selectmen, Lloyd P. Wood, William J. Markerson, William Albee. Hearing is now open. Who would like to make an opening statement?
I would like to talk about the proposal.
So come on down. Welcome.
I have one booklet for you
Go ahead, folks.
to share. The Thompson-Moulton Cemetery is really two cemeteries. If I quote from the Tuftonboro, New Hampshire Cemeteries, Graveyards, and Burial Sites book, published by the Tuftonboro Association, quote, Thompson-Moulton, this is actually comprised of two separate family graveyards. The Thompson section contains graves from the mid-19th century through the late 1970s, all Thompsons, their spouses, and children. The Moulton section, which includes two family names, Moulton and Varney, is older and in poorer condition. Most of the graves are from the mid-19th century. In that booklet, I've put in at the back is a copy of a plan, a survey plan that was done for Lester Thompson in 1980. And in the upper right corner, which is possibly folded over from where you're looking at it, you can see the cemetery, and you can see the boundary line of Hazel Morrow, where it goes to the cemetery, stops, and then picks up again on the other side of the cemetery and goes to 171. The original boundary line between the Morrow property and the Thompson property was that straight line all the way through. When they started burying people, people on one side of the line are on that side, and the Thompsons are on the other side. There's, I've put in copies of the list of the graves that is in that Tuftonboro Association booklet, and their drawing of where those graves are located. I've put in photographs that were taken this month that show on the ground what it looks like. They show the iron pin that marks the boundary between the Thompsons and it's now Beverly Brown. And I've put in approximate lines of where the division line is. There's quite a wide pathway between the two sections. There's no stone wall or division fence. There's just an unused wide pathway. So the cemeteries, are technically owned by the descendants of the people who are buried there. We do not know the descendants of the Moultons and the Varneys that are in the Moulton Cemetery. We can't contact them. They haven't been taking care of it. The town has taken care of the entire thing for at least 30 years. And now some of the Thompson descendants now want to take over maintenance of the Thompson Cemetery. Technically, legally, they have no right to take care of the Moulton Cemetery. So, and nobody has the right to give, or the authority to give them that opportunity either, because unless it's abandoned. If the cemetery trustees would like that you would unabandon the Thompson portion, because the Thompson family wants to take care of it themselves, but leave the Moulton portion abandoned, so that the town would then have responsibility for maintenance. And, if the Thompsons want to take care of it, then we would have the authority to say, that would be great, we appreciate it, whatever.
This is going to require a survey.
No. There is a survey. I mean, what do you,
Oh. There's I see
you
a
would need a survey if somebody was going to try to bury somebody right up against the line or something, I guess, I don't know.
My question is whether or not we need to delineate somehow, other than just in verbiage, what portion is abandoned and what portion is not abandoned. Or do we just say the Moulton part? But I mean, that doesn't really
Well,
lend clarity.
there is the big major iron pin out there that's in the photos, and the survey plan, it shows the line that would extend straight through.
I guess if I can speak now, I'm Scott Johnson. I don't have a problem with the Moulton side. Susie, they can do whatever they want with that side. As far as us taking care of it, we'd be happy to. It was actually quite a mess this year, so I don't know who's been in charge of taking care of it. But we have it all cleaned up, and I don't see any reason that we wouldn't allow them to go in and do whatever they wanted on the Moulton side. I know Susie wants to clean stones or whatever, and that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I just don't. Susie's a lot more well-read on this abandoning, which is
Well, we
a
think
poor
we are.
choice of words of what I
Yeah,
can see.
Well, the bottom line is you can't abandon it without the descendant's permission.
Well,
That's
it isn't
essentially what you did,
It isn't that we abandoned anything, it's that we claimed that you abandoned it.
which we
Well-
didn't, and that's where
Well,
Susie's legal work
This
abandonment comes
board-
in.
This board erroneously declared it abandoned.
Right.
Right. We didn't follow the procedure in the law in declaring it abandoned.
Right, and the trustees made the initial mistake on that, so we were all culpable for it.
And we
Yeah.
need to correct that error.
Mhm.
When we consulted the legal department at the Municipal Association about the possibility of partially unabandoning a cemetery, their response was, you can't, it's all or nothing. So if we want to look at this as two separate cemeteries, then I think that we have to do something to make it two separate cemeteries beyond what we have today. It's, for some reason, it's been considered one cemetery with two separate sections in it. But as I remember from what I read of the RSA and of the information that I got from the cemetery trustees relative to abandonment, there's no discussion in there about partially abandoning a burial ground. So it's,
We need
I-
to
to-
subdivide.
But it's two burial
We need a
grounds.
subdivision.
It's already two burial grounds, because you've got two distinct families, and they're each on their own side of the
So is it
boundary.
a simple matter of a declaration on the part of the board? You know, we're going to declare the Moulton Cemetery to
I
be in
think so,
existence.
I think so, and I think if that were done, the trustees could put another marker out there, get something budgeted to put another pin at the other side of the stone wall.
Isn't there a pin on both sides already?
I didn't see it.
There's a pin on
It could
both
be-
sides.
Oh, okay, I didn't see
It's a
it.
diagonal line across the cemetery. And I just think if you start opening a can of worms, there's more than one cemetery in town that has two families in it. So,
that's true.
I mean,
Right, but this, it's clear that the property line goes right through it.
I know,
Or
I'm
used
just
to.
saying that, you know what, there's more than one cemetery, and, there could be more issues down the road with other families. We happen to be one of the families that came forward with this.
The only family that came forward with it.
Well, I would be reticent to try and make a division of this cemetery without some guidance from somebody that has better understanding of the law than I do. I mean, what we're discussing here seems logical. okay, and that, oh, this board ought to be able to do such and such and go forward.
Maybe the process that we need to go through is to say, okay, we're gonna reverse the decision on the whole cemetery,
And then we'll look
And
at
then-
options
and
for
then we'll
the
look
other
at-
part later.
how we're gonna handle the Moulton end.
Yeah,
Is it that
That
point
makes
in time?
sense to me.
Yeah.
Why don't, maybe you could just continue the hearing for a month.
Susie, we've been over this since January.
You don't want him to,
No.
No, he's going to abandon the whole cemetery.
Unabandoned.
Unabandoned it.
Take
you
it back
don't
to
want that. Oh, you do want that.
Yeah, we're gonna give the control back to the
Right.
Thompsons. The Moultons will have control as well, but we don't know who they are. So now it's our job to try to create a Moulton cemetery out of their house.
I think you could get a legal opinion, maybe postpone this for a week and get a legal opinion of whether what I've submitted
Yeah.
is sufficient to show.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
separate
could one
cemetery.
person speak at a time, please? The camera can only record one voice. Sue, you have the floor.
Television.
I would suggest that you could continue the hearing maybe for a week, whenever your next opening is. And in the meantime, ask an attorney whether that's enough information to prove that it's two cemeteries rather than one. Just because it's got one walled perimeter, well, 3 walls, 1 fence.
In your role as trustee, is there any activity that's gonna happen for the rest of this season in that cemetery? I mean, is there any desperate need for us to get involved in the maintenance from now on, this year?
Just
I'm
the
saying-
normal maintenance gets,
Yeah.
which we had planned to do 4 to 6 mowings
Okay.
or trims, whatever.
Which we've already done 4 mowings.
On the whole cemetery or
Yes,
just?
the whole thing.
On the whole thing?
It's all trimmed and cleaned.
Well, I don't have a problem, moving the meeting or
Continuing.
continuing, sorry, thank you.
Now, what are we gonna gain out of that if we continue the meeting?
I don't think you're gonna gain anything.
Right.
You're not going to lose
You're
anything.
not gonna lose anything.
Mhm.
I mean, would our goal be, I'm not gonna make the decision alone here, guys.
I know.
Is our goal to create a separate Moulton burial plot here? If we can?
I believe our objective today is to correct an error that was made in our procedure in January. And if we want to separately, in the future, pursue the possibility of creating 2 separate burial grounds, that can be done in the normal course of what might need to happen, and there may need to be multiple things happen along the way. I don't know, but we made an error in January, and I believe we need to correct that error today. And if going forward we want to look at separating part of that out as a separate burial ground for abandonment, then that's something to be taken from a corrected position back to before we made our error. That's my view.
You have your hand up, sir.
Yes. Why does it need to be unabandoned if the technical legal term abandonment doesn't take any rights away from the family? They can still maintain it and all of everything. I mean, maybe it's just a personal preference, and that would be up to you. It's not my place to tell you, but
Actually, according to 289-19, it does give all the rights to the town
For maintenance.
for maintenance.
oh, okay.
And more. Abandoning it gives the town the rights to take care of it and decide what happens with it.
Right.
Okay. I was under the misimpression that it did that while at the same time not taking anything away, but
they still have rights to go in and maintain, but the town technically is, if they wanted to bury somebody, they gotta get the approval of the town.
I see.
So that's a problem in this case, because there is room for more burials.
Right. Thanks for
And-
clarifying, that does make sense then.
I take an entirely different point of view, having mowed cemeteries. We're talking about a lawn with square rocks. And I know of at least 3 cemeteries that private individuals save the town money by taking care of them. And I guess we're gonna have to go hire a lawyer to figure this out? It's not brain surgery. I've gone by that cemetery 69 years. It looks like a cemetery. I never knew it was 2 cemeteries. And over the years, somebody, family members or Bill Williams or someone else, has gone on and when a tree comes down, it gets picked up, and maybe not every month, but grass gets mowed a couple times a year. I'm amazed.
I'm not certain that we could be as sanguine as all that, given the fact that there is an issue. I think we have to at least address the issue.
What about taking a week, saying if person number 1 and person number 2 can come up with a reasonable compromise here?
We're not in disagreement, are we, Scott?
No, if she wants the Moulton side, she can do whatever she wants with it, but as far as our side,
You want to take care of it.
Yeah.
yep, take care of it,
And if at some point you-
unabandon our side.
And at some point you can't take care
Absolutely.
of it, we'll revisit the issue, right?
Agreed.
That seems
And
like...
we'll be happy to take care of the whole thing.
But they have
problem
no-
with that.
I'm going to make a motion.
Uh,
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. you
No, fine.
So you're about ready to speak.
I'm just saying that the Thompsons are not related to the Moultons. They have
That we
no,
know of. You and
That
I
we
are
know.
related, do you know that?
I know that.
Yeah. It was like 12 generations ago.
Not that many, actually. We have no trace of the Moultons. They conveyed their land to a branch of the Thompson family back in the 1850s, 1870s, okay? That branch of the Thompson family, none of them are buried in the Thompson portion there. They didn't get buried in town, I don't think. And I don't know where they went from there. So it's always been the people that own that land that's Wellsweet Farm are what is in the Moulton thing. The descendants technically own it. The Thompsons are not descendants.
Right.
So they don't, if it's a separate parcel, which is what I'm maintaining, that there's 2 cemeteries surrounded by one, contiguous wall and fence system, but clearly with the markers showing, and a survey plan showing where the line was when the town was, it's one of the lines on this map, actually, the line that goes through. So, to me, it's 2 separate parcels. And the Thompsons theoretically, legally don't have a right, and we don't have a right to say they can do it, because if we unabandoned it, we have no say-so over who
But I
can do
don't think
what.
that's true, Susie. I think you do have the right to say we can mow it.
If it's abandoned.
If it's unabandoned, you're taking care of it anyways.
We're not anymore.
All right,
Not if
let's
it's
move
unabandoned.
this thing along.
Do you have a motion?
I move that we unabandon the Thompson-Moulton Cemetery and return it to the situation that existed before we declared abandoned in January.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion among the board?
I'm sensitive to all of these other things around the edges. If there are ways to to properly separate out separate sections from separate families going forward. I'm certainly willing to pursue that, but you know, I think at this point, saying we're going to take a week or two and have somebody lay it out, it may be a multi-step process that you have to go through.
Well, and
to get there.
ultimately, the first step is that we had to reverse the action.
That's exactly right.
Any further comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for everyone's participation.
Have a good day. Thanks, Susan.
I want to ask the board's approval to do the following. Chief Thompson is scheduled next, but he spoke to me that if there were a number of people to talk for Chris Sawyer has an appointment, he'd have no problem putting his comments on.
Fine with me, yeah.
Okay, we have 3 appointments. Let's start with Chris Sawyer. Chris, come on down. Afternoon.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I received a letter from Karen, the email from Karen.
Yeah, it's in the correspondence folder.
Is this the one?
Yeah.
Yep.
You care to read it, or you read it?
Would you like to read it?
Oh, you got it.
Go ahead.
I'm requesting appointment to the planning board. I was a member from July 2008 through June 2017, June 30th actually. Upon the untimely passing of former chair Rick Friend, I was elected and continued to hold that position until June 30th. During my time on the board, we were able to make the application process less cumbersome for applicants, did much needed updates to zoning regulations, and created several new zoning regs as mandated by law, for example, wind energy and excavation. We also created a process of greater communication between applicants with conditional approvals so that they could be aware of upcoming deadlines that needed to be met to avoid having to go through the entire application process if they were not. Recently, the board has undertaken the daunting task of updating the master plan as mandated by the state. The voters approved $10,828 to do so, and the board was on schedule to have this ready to go to town meeting in March of 2018. If this is not completed, the money which has already been spent will be for naught. These are just a few of the items accomplished during my time on the board, which as a whole contributed to and is very proud of. Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I'm just asking to be appointed to the planning board.
Anyone else have any comments?
I think I have people here that would like to speak on my behalf, possibly, if the board would say correct.
Do we want to open it up to a public hearing, or what's the board's?
I mean, it's going to inevitably happen, where does it let go?
Sure.
I mean, it's hard enough to get people to apply to boards in the first place, so
Yep.
obviously there's some
Yep.
issues that need to be addressed.
Yep.
So, I don't have a problem.
Okay, we'll
I'm
open
not
it up,
scared of anybody.
as long as one person speaks at a time. Who would like to speak?
I'd like to speak.
Go ahead, sir. Would you just give your name to the secretary there, please?
Fenton Varney. I'd like to second what Chris just put forward in her letter. Having been a member on and off on the planning board since the mid-'80s, I understand the importance of the continuity, whoever is on the board. As Chip just mentioned, trying to find people that even sit on boards in a small town is extremely difficult. Finding experienced people and having people stay on board for the continuity is even more difficult. If at this time, even with Chris on the board, we barely have a quorum, okay? And as far as people that actually have experience, at the time it comes down to myself, Tony's been there, Jack, Bill, you've been there for a little while, and Chris. So there's really only 4 or 5 of us that have been there for any period of time. I think I may hold the record for the most years, and you know, I certainly appreciate back in the day when I was chairman of the planning board, which was on and off for a dozen years. You know, I was lucky enough to have super support while I was there. but it's a very difficult position. The amount of hours that Chris has put in the last several years, in particular while we've been rewriting the master plan, is pretty indescribable. I mean, from a volunteer position, to have somebody step up and do this is really quite extraordinary. Right now, with the time that we have and the money that's been invested, Chris is the go-to person with the LRPC, okay? To lose that contact, I don't know who's gonna make it up. Because right now, the only other people, I don't have time to be chairman, okay? I don't think Tony has time. Tony Triolo is also a planning board member sitting here. Has time to be chairman. Chris is more than willing to step up and continue that process. And I don't think there's anybody else, I don't believe Jack Parsons, can or will, with his position as the code officer. So I think we're going to leave ourselves in a very difficult position without Chris. Certainly as chairman, and again, doing a wonderful job for the time I've been there. And I know it's a pretty thankless job. Somebody's always upset with you somewhere. You guys don't do much better than we do. But I'd certainly like to advocate and that you guys, seriously consider this reappointment. We don't have a chairman, and I don't know who's going to step up if she doesn't, get appointed at this time. And there is no plan B here that I see. Okay? And we may not even have a quorum to run a planning board without Chris at this time. Okay?
I'd like to say something. My
Just
name
give your
is
name to Karen.
Tony Triolo.
Go ahead, sir.
I've been on the planning board since 2009. I came on when Rick Friend was chairman. And unfortunately I was there during his passing and Chris took over. I have to say that in my experience in dealing with different boards, different towns, namely Wolfboro and here, Chris has made this board, or helped make it user-friendly as compared to what we have to go through Wolfboro to get anything done. And that's a credit to her and us on the planning board. We made sure that most people, or the people who live in this town, don't have to jump through loops or hoops to get what they need done in their properties. Chris has done a terrific job. She's guided us. She's been there. And I always felt, and I said this to Fenton the other day, I always felt that Chris had the town's best interest at heart, and I support her. And of course, I'll rubber stamp everything Fenton just said.
Anyone else would like to speak? Okay.
Lady who was the clerk.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
Just give your name to Karen.
Ann Hendrickson. I'm staff to the planning board, and I actually concur with both Tony Triolo and Fenton. However, that wasn't why I was here. I was actually here just to see what determination was going to be made, because it could impact the board as a whole, and as staff, that impacts my job in supporting the board. And so I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen, so I'm here to be present.
There's a lot of loose pieces, a lot of things that are, like Fenton said, that we're working on. We don't know where to go, where to pick up the pieces. Am I right, Fenton?
Yeah, and heavyweight, this is a multi-year process to
Right.
get where we are on the master plan. And to drop the ball to that right now, never mind the cost that will be incurred, there is no backup to Chris dealing with the LRPC. And none of the rest of us have had the contact. And I am certainly not in the mood, if this, without Chris's reappointment, to pick up too many pieces, period. There's a lot of time involved and effort dealing with thousands of pieces of paper and counts, and it's been a very big process. And I'd like to see it, finished through to completion, get Chris appointed, let's get on with it. And, that's where I stand with it.
Right now, we have some very well-qualified people on the board. Fenton, Chris, that young, they know the town, myself, they know the town, they know its interests. We're working to make the town better.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a
Would you
question.
give your
Really,
name, please, to Karen?
Karen, Steve.
Yeah.
My question is, why is this even necessary? Because so typically, when a term ends for someone on a board, they're automatically reappointed if they wanted to serve. Yet that wasn't the procedure that was followed here. I'm just curious why we have to go through this.
Well, there certainly was some sort of a breakdown, and I'm not certain that it's all on one side or the other. And being a little new to this particular set of circumstances, I mean, there was a discomfort going on that resulted in not reappointing Chris when the time came. How did that happen? I mean, I guess you guys have to look yourselves in the mirror and say, what did we do? And the Board of Selectmen have to look themselves in the mirror and say, well, what did we do? But it wasn't without reason that it happened, obviously. Or, as I said in my first statement, hard enough to get people to serve on boards. Why would you take a perfectly qualified person off? Unless there's some tension. And the tension was great enough that the previous vote happened.
You all set?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Guy Pike. Chip has mentioned some kind of tension. At any time during the last year, did any Board of Selectmen meet with Chris and discuss any issues you might have and try to, in a logical and polite manner, possibly work with Chris to relieve any of this tension? Do we know that happened at all? Did that happen? I think a yes or no can be said in that case.
I'm aware that the budget was discussed.
The budget was discussed.
Sure.
Was that a source of tension?
I was answering his question. Anyone else like to speak? Go ahead.
I would like to know, when did you make the decision? It's not in any of your minutes.
Was there a collective decision? I'm not certain that there was.
There was a letter, didn't Chris get a letter that you all three signed? Isn't that a decision?
This board, until this piece of paper here dated Wednesday, July 19th, received no paperwork from the planning board asking for anyone to be reappointed. And when no one was asked to be reappointed, my response was, send a letter of thanks to a person who served the town. And that letter was sent.
And all three of you signed it?
Yes.
When did you?
We signed the letter of thanks after.
And that's not making a decision that should go in the minutes?
No, it just didn't, it just happened. There was no appointment made, Chris was no longer with us, so shouldn't we say thank you for her being here? That's not a decision. The decision was made by the planning board or by whoever sends appointments to us.
It's not typical.
Yeah.
I saw a hand up over here.
I'll defer to Mr. Varney.
Yeah, I've been reappointed on and off 8 or 9 times. I've never filled out a piece of paper for reappointment any time in the last 30 years, nor have I known anybody else to fill out a piece of paper to reappoint, at least to the planning board, what the ZBA and the rest of them do. I mean, it's pretty much automatic. I mean, if there's is there an actual form that says, I want to be reappointed?
Well, when you go to get sworn in, don't they give you a piece of paper that says?
Yeah, after the fact. You don't go in and request.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd like to make a
I
comment
don't
as
think it ever
staff.
came out.
Sorry, Leanne again, Karen. As staff to the planning board and the Conservation Commission and the Mineral Lake Watershed Committee, typically in the past, since I've been employed, I have prepared a memo on behalf, because it has taken place prior to the expiration, on behalf of whatever member has expressed a desire to continue. That's typically what I've done. This year, there were some, I want to say, things that didn't occur normal, like I know Nancy Bird from the Conservation Commission, I believe, I might be speaking out of turn, but might have contacted Karen outside of me. And so I didn't provide that memo because she told Karen she wouldn't be requesting reappointment. Then she changed her mind and I did submit a memo. So a couple things didn't work as typical, like in the past 8, 9, whatever years I've been, working as staff. I had not prepared a memo for this Board of Selectmen to reappoint Chris because I was waiting on John Cameron's response, whether or not he wanted to be reappointed as well. So June 30th came and went. So technically, you know, according to the Board of Selectmen, their term probably expired. So on behalf of like the planning board and Chris, I did not submit a memo, as I have done in the past, because I was waiting on John Cameron's response, and I thought I'd do them together and bulk them, and it'd be easier to address both at a meeting. I still have not heard a response from John directly, only through people that he's interested, but I have not received a direct response. That all being said, I do have one question. If a letter of thanks was written to Chris, was a letter of thanks written to John Cameron? Because if you feel that her term expired June 30th, then John Cameron technically should have received a letter as well. So if a decision was made to send a letter to her, was a decision also made? I'm just putting it out as a...
We only send letters to nice people. I don't know John Cameron.
Anyhow,
Great guy.
anyhow,
Is he a
gentlemen,
nice guy?
He served, yeah.
We
he's
now have
been
a
on it
request.
before I-
before the selectmen, the board of selectmen, from Chris to be appointed to the board, to this planning board. Let us act on it so we could all go home.
What action does the board want to take? In the lack of a motion, why don't we move on to another subject?
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm
This is
certain you
pathetic.
can just...
In the lack of a motion,
It's
Well,
pathetic.
I have one more thing to
Are we
say.
done yet?
are we
I
done?
mean, no, I don't
Are
think we
you
are.
cowards?
I don't think...
Hold the vote.
You had all these people come in, and they're all, I mean, I'm not in favor of mob rule, and I'm not in favor of boards that are running themselves with no control from the selectmen. I want to make that perfectly clear. One of the issues that I have, and I have only one issue currently because I don't know that much about what you guys are doing, but you're not signing your pay vouchers.
Yes, we are.
I am.
And I am.
Well, really?
Mhm.
Well, from now on, I'll make sure I check again because I've been signing
I can
before you.
CC you.
So at any rate, it's issues
Prove it.
like that, that when I make a request as a selectman, I expect some sort of response, not a non-response. But be that as it may, I don't think we can let this room just go away. I think
Okay.
there's got to be a vote.
Okay.
And
As the moderator here, if there's a vote, I will respond to it. It's you people.
so, can we discuss this amongst ourselves now that we've had public input? I
Sure.
mean, what are our options?
Well, our options is, one is we can nominate Chris for another term and vote on it, which is not an unreasonable thing to do with the large number of people that are here today. Or we can let everybody go away and say, we'll consider it and deal with it another time, which I don't think makes a lot of sense. I will say that there is friction, and the chairman is aware of friction, and I would be happy to go into a number of items. Probably better to do it in non-public than in a public session. And I am sure that her memory being better than mine, she remembers at least all of these things from the past. The planning board is independent of the Board of Selectmen, but the Board of Selectmen have a fiduciary responsibility for the town, and certain things that need to be done to protect and support that have been bucked along the way on an ongoing basis. One example?
Yeah.
When the planning board was sending out the survey for all of the taxpayers, the normal course of sending items out from the town, or that they're run through the town postage meter. But the planning board didn't want to do that. They wanted to buy stamps from the center Tuftonboro post office in a belief that that helped the post office or the general store in center Tuftonboro, rather than using the postage meter. So they bought stamps, they individually applied stamps to the letters going out. It's a little thing. It's outside the normal course of what's done. In my recollection, I was not on the board at the time, is there was some back and forth and some friction as it related to that in sending out the survey. That's an example of friction among the departments. One example. So I don't know how we.
Is there a way beyond this?
That's the question. Absolutely.
I mean, it's,
Can I ask a question? What does that particular instance have to do with the function of the planning board and the work that we're doing? How does that interfere with what we're accomplishing? Am I, you know, I don't know, I mean, we could go around with, when you're in government, and there's always going to be, no one's going to agree with everybody all the time. There's always going to be situations where we disagree. That's part of what this country is all about. But to keep the best interest of the town at heart, I think that's the most important thing. And I still say that that's what's happening with this planning board. Our best interest of Tuftonboro is in our heart. And that's what we're trying to do.
Did we not have a postage line in our budget that we can use on postage during that time, Leanne? I know Bill wasn't on the board, but we had a budget line. We had a budget line for postage, correct?
My budget is actually right on my desk.
So I can appreciate what Bill says, but I don't think that's really relevant to me being bucking the system. If we had a line for postage, we didn't have to use the meter. It wasn't written policy that all departments have to use the postage meter.
What he's saying is to create a friction among the different departments.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
An example, right.
What action would the board like to take?
I don't think we can leave here without a vote. So I'm going to make a motion that we reappoint Mrs. Sawyer to the planning board.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I guess the further discussion that I would have is that when situations come down to this level of meeting, of polarization, if you will, both sides have to look at the issues. I mean, if I hate to be a mediator here, but I mean, if
Somebody's got to do it, Chip.
If our selectman member of the planning board feels that there's tension, let's get rid of the tension. Let's do something about it. I mean, I'm not. You certainly don't want me to be a selectman member of the planning board.
There has to be dialogue.
Yeah, and less resistance if there's. I mean, if you're going to spend political capital, make sure it's on something serious. So
That's correct.
I think that's my statement.
Is there any further discussion? I call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
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 Okay, I just have one more thing.
Go ahead.
Postmortem.
Huh?
Postmortem.
Postmortem, actually, under section 673.5 and also under section 4157A, I'm still technically a member of the Board of Planning Board, because there is nobody that is in my position to be replaced. You haven't voted on a successor. So as of right now, it's only a 7-member board. I'm one of 7. And you didn't send a letter to John Cameron. And it was clear by your 2-line note to me that an action had taken place by the extent that the letter was written, because that was a decision that was made to write me a letter and not to write John Cameron a letter by somebody, and it wasn't me. So, look up those 2 statutes.
I hope you guys got a plan B to finish this bullshit. Let me tell you, because in about 2 minutes, you're not gonna have a planning board. Okay, because I just resigned, and I think Tony's going with me. That's the most bullshit thing I've ever seen in 35 years of living in this town.
Dan, screw you!
Screw! I want the camera on it.
Both of you. You know good and well it's just Carol and Sunquist goddamn minion.
So I gotta do
That's
it
all
for you.
that
I'll run for
matters.
selectman next year. How's that? You want me sitting here every week, representing Tuftonboro?
You guys,
After all the time and effort that woman put in?
Let's call a little adjournment.
Talk about
let's
thankless.
take a moment.
Yeah, take a moment. Take a long time. Go find a planning board. See who else wants to put up with your bullshit.
It's on cable, right? So you
Yes.
say whatever you want.
Yep.
Tony, how are you? Terrific. Picture of how always
Ken.
everything is speaking.
Planning board.
Who's saying? Hanging around?
No, I know. Well, now there's,
No planning board.
I don't know, we need to,
No problem.
did Tony resign?
Who's next?
Fire department,
Here?
call the meeting back in order. Fire department, Chief Thompson. Thank you for waiting, Chief.
No problem.
Thanks, sir.
Really struck by lightning? What are the odds of that?
1 for 1 now.
As of yesterday, or today, we added some calls today. They just weren't added in when I have done this. We've currently done 117 fire calls, 156 EMS calls, 33 service calls, 14 special details, totaling 320 for the year. 12 gas furnace inspections, 6 oil burner inspections, 2 wood stove inspections, and 6 life safety for 26. As you can read, the Premier Lake Fire Station was struck by lightning on the 17th, and it damaged 1 door opener, it damaged a couple electrical outlets, and the alarm system. However, the alarm system did function, and told us that there was smoke in the building on the 2nd floor of the fire station. When we went there, we found the damage as far as it goes. We're currently working to get a total on how much it's going to cost to fix the items and see if it'll be more than the $1,000 deductible the town has as far as insurance wise for that. I think that it's going to be, so that we probably will be making a claim as far as insurance for that. We are currently working with FEMA on the reimbursement still for the 14th and 15th. It looks like that we're going to be at 85% reimbursement, which is higher than normal reimbursement, because we had taken care of most of the stuff within the first 30 days as far as cleanup.
So that's, can you give us a dollar amount?
We were looking at like 14,000 and change, and the dollar amount would be somewhere around $12,430.
So, I know when we last talked, you were having issues trying to get it into their
Yep.
system.
We've been able to make access as far as uploading everything. I cannot see what they are putting in, and they're working on that so that I can do so. There's some issue as far as the system that doesn't allow me to see what they are putting in, but they definitely can see what we put in, and are working on the other half of what needs to be done. Also, we're working on, just waiting for some information from the road agent in reference to the July 1st storm, to see if there's anything as far as reimbursement for that also that we can apply for. It was my understanding that there was quite a bit more damage and washouts and things like that than, the winter storm that took place. So we just need that information so it can be uploaded. So we'll just keep you updated as things move along and progress with that. After networking with some other fire departments, we were able to locate a company called Enhanced Management Services out of Danville, Pennsylvania, to provide ambulance billing for the town.
Yeah, I read that contract, and a little concerned about some of the conditions with regards to collection. So when you get to you haven't signed it, right?
The contract has not been sent to them. I have it signed as far as desk-wise.
Okay.
On my desk.
Because I think a one-year contract's probably the way to go, because I don't know. I'm just a little uncomfortable with their collections and how it's all gonna work together.
Sure. The choices were 1 year or 3 years.
Right.
And you make that decision.
I mean, there's some 30-day limitations on, or restrictions that they impose that I know you're not gonna get 30-day payments out of Medicare. They take 60 or 90 days sometimes to pay, so I'm just concerned that it's gonna not work out as well as it
Well, 1 year is a great way to start a new relationship, okay? And if everything's going well after that, then,
sign me up.
yeah.
And compared to the other company, as far as Comstar, obviously originally they said that they could do our billing, and then they said it's not worth it to us. They were going to charge us, $3,000 plus a year as far as the bill. It was right around $250 a month that they were saying, and then a percentage of that. But they felt that it wasn't worth it to them. This other company is $1,000 setup fee up front. There's no other payments to them besides the 8.5% of whatever they charge for that.
But there's a lot of requirements on your end.
Yes.
So that they can properly bill for the services, and there are a number of different services involved.
Yes, as far as providing information, and they access a lot of that stuff right from our reports that are done through Tempest. So that would be a 1 year thing that you would be more comfortable with as far as
I would
looking
be,
at.
1 year, fine.
I think that's a good way to start out.
I've checked with some people in the seacoast, and there's more towns down there that are going to this company here, so I think the chief is...
There are currently 13 departments in New Hampshire that are with them, and they said that they are happy with their services. I know that there, as Selectman Wood had said, is that there was a consortium that just looked into changing from Comstar to another company, and they had apparently picked this company. So, but they are not really that. I have provided you at one point in time with ambulance billing rates, and we went with the same rate as Stuart so that there is no question if there was more than one person transported from a household of different rates for that. I don't see how you could do it in any other way, or maybe not
agree. I think we need to be charging the same rate as the contracting limits does. We don't want to be poaching off of their business or gouging, if you will.
I've read over the agreement. I agree with your comments about the 1 year.
Yeah.
If it works out, we Chief, do you need us to vote on this tonight, or what is the?
That is totally up to you. If you feel that you need time to look at the different things, we have a year to bill people as far as it goes. And with talking with the company, as far as the billing time starts, the two that we would be billing, we have plenty of time to look at that as far as that goes, so no decision has to be made if you're not comfortable with that.
Well, I looked at it, I didn't read it over thoroughly. It'd be my preference to wait and put on the agenda for the next
I
meeting.
think
The
that
next meeting is in August. Is that, doesn't leave you in the lurch?
No.
does it?
If you need that to be looked at by legal counsel or whatever, then
Anything else for us?
on July 17th, I was reappointed as the chairman of the Hospitality Committee for another year. And the department currently has 2 people for new membership paperwork that is out.
Great. Always a good thing, right?
One would be a junior, and the other is a person who's been attending for some time.
I just have one thing, and I don't remember if we talked about it before. I think you got this, the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. As I looked the brochure over, some of the eligible activities that they talk about are some things that we've talked about relative to being prepared for future storms, generators, localized flood risk reduction projects. That's not you, but you know, it's within the town. Infrastructure retrofit, and I'm thinking, does that mean like you know, parallel communication line? I mean, there are a number of things in here that speak to me as it might be something that would go into a grant program. So, you got that? Yeah. Anyway, these are things that we're thinking about doing, and if there's grant money to help us out, it makes it a little easier to get there for sure.
You have anything further as far as?
No. Thank you for stepping
you.
aside for a
Yep.
few minutes.
No problem. We're all trying to do the same.
Yeah.
Next, we'll go to the police department. Come on down, chief. How are you doing?
That's that.
Yep, thank you.
Chief.
Big thing I see is car stops are down. The other activity is pretty similar. Some of our incidents are down a little bit, but I think there's actually a little more than it shows the 78, or at least, and some of them seem very time consuming. We've spent a lot of time dealing with an issue between 2 particular families that seem to be
A sponge for your time.
yeah, a lot of time on it.
As long as no one gets hurt, you've been successful.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
As far as training, one of the things we're working on is trying to get our Narcan recertification going with the fire department. We have the new Narcan kits. We have done the familiarization with those new kits. We have to complete the other state requirements, which was kind of not clear. So we're working on, one of the calls I was making to the state to try and find out what we needed to do to get that cleared up. Got the answers, working on it. Because one of the things that came up is we have to take basic first aid. Well, there was no card given to us for the basic first aid. So when I asked somebody down there, they said, well, it's whenever it expires. Well, okay, when does it expire? So I have a card, and it was either 2 or 4 years, he wasn't sure, so I called. In fact, I talked to your brother, and he said it was 2 years, so you need to do that again. No biggie, we're doing it again, we're getting it done. So just a matter of trying to clarify exactly that, because it didn't really say that clearly in the administrative rules either, so. Parking issues, obviously it was a busy weekend, that kind of seemed to be it, now it's kind of abated to some degree, but I'm still working on that. I did reach out to Wolfboro, Moultonboro, and Sandwich for some of their laws, rules, etc. I haven't got some information from Wolfboro, so wait for the other 2 towns for stuff.
I will tell you relative to parking issues in the lot down here at 19 Mile, we have more than one diligent resident who is keeping their eye on the lot and reporting unattached trailers in the lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the appropriate enforcement.
Well, they have to be unattached overnight, they can't just be unattached.
Okay, so
if they're unattached during the day,
yeah.
it's not a violation.
Right.
It's overnight.
However you, what the appropriate way for the police department to monitor that and see what's going on, I don't know. But as I say, we have concerned citizens who are becoming very diligent about that. And, you know, that lot, when the lot isn't full, it isn't an issue. But the problem is, if it becomes a pattern when the lot isn't full, then when the lot fills up, then it is an issue, because you got all these people that have sort of become used to, I'll just throw my trailer over here and do this, that, or the other.
Yeah, it tends to peak on a few particular busy weekends in the summer. It's when we have the biggest issue of it. Other than that, it's like today, there's half a dozen trailers down there, but and 4 or 5 cars is not
a
that
great
much.
voting day today.
Yeah, not a good voting day.
Right.
As I understand it, basically you have 3 balls in the air, reference cars and parking. The one that he talks about, and the same person is vigilant with me. The other thing is parking as you come out of the boat ramp and head back toward Melvin. And that's a state issue.
Each side of Union Wharf Road.
Right.
Yeah, and I've noticed this year, it seems to be particularly on the Melvin side this year that we haven't seen in the past so much, and now it's like every day or so, there's 2 or 3.
The problem is there's one sign like about 200-300 feet up the road, so you don't know, is it 100 foot, or is it from Union Wharf to that sign?
Right.
And that's the conversation I had.
And I know the state is busy paving and it's vacation time. The other thing is I noticed that the signs on the dock itself have different times of when people can park boats and all night and whatnot. And we're also working on the town ordinance to...
Right. And 20 Mile Bay is also, there's an issue that's already posted with signs, but some of them are missing, or perhaps there should be another one to the north also. The northerly end is like a little handmade sign on that post.
Right.
But there should be an official regulatory sign.
And as you go over the bridge, 2 signs were taken down.
Two signs are gone, and one is covered partly by a tree. So, but that we raised with the state also. And the other thing that's come up recently was the parking. There was somebody camping, or a camper down at the beach. Seems to have addressed and seems to have moved over finally.
And your guys are introducing themselves to the lifeguard and making appearances there, right?
We're trying, but we've been kind of busy with this, like I said, this sponge of time. It's been, we were busy, the last week has been pretty busy with a lot of different involved things.
Yes.
We've had, felony burglary involving drugs, which the person was perhaps under the influence of, so we had to deal with getting them to the hospital, and then when they got released from the hospital, we actually arrested them, took them to the jail, which meant that we had to arraignment the next morning, do felony first, and that's with somebody else that we had arrested and released, and then they got, even though they got released on a domestic, they had to be charged had to go back to court the next day for, it was domestic violence related. So we had a busy week the last week or so.
Job security.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Just to let you know, the new cruiser is not getting set up yet because we're waiting for parts down at the shop. The old one, I just need to get the stickers off. I've got stuff to do. I just need to find a little bit of time some night to come down here and rip those off. Then they can put that up for auction. So those are big things we get. Oh, and the other thing I'm working on ordering is protective equipment, personal protective equipment for the officers relative to fentanyl or opiates. And obviously it was a thing in the paper Sunday, we were talking about it. I've been working with a
New
group of
procedures.
safety and procedures. I just got an email today from the state, what they're using in their order. So there's a state bid for the company, lab equipment, but they have a state bid, so it's like half the price normally it is. So when I get that stuff, I'll be ordering it soon.
I had a couple things here. Got a nice picture of you, commendation presentation, and you're with the governor. What are you being commendated for?
That was the response to the, I gave a copy.
Maybe there's a page
The combination.
There should be both right near each other in the front of it.
it's missing. That's all we have new.
Yeah, it's separate. I can pull it out for as well.
Okay.
It was a commendation for, it actually wasn't just me, it was for fire, EMS. It was the storm on Election Day. The response to that, Executive Counselor Joe Kenny had contacted me about it.
So no state money, but you got a medal.
Yeah.
Myself folder, it was like an 8.5 by 14 thing.
Yeah, it's in the front of the.
I see it.
So anyway, it was a combination for first responders and the co-op for responding to the storm. That was held over at Laconia at the fun spot. I went and got that with some people from Moulton Borough. I had recognized also when I talked to Executive Counselor Kenny Sandwich in Center Harbor, but they seem to be not on the commendation. I didn't write it.
Well,
I did put the plug in for them, but
They didn't vote for it.
change the subject. Can we, in the next week, have 3 job performance reviews
Yep.
from you? And looking over your June statistics, you indicated that there were 1, 2, 3, 4 different days that you did community service. What were those about? Glad to see it.
June community service. Oh my gosh.
Something very good.
Yeah, what did we do? There's a couple of things we worked on.
Bike
That
rodeo?
was bike rodeo, bike safety day. I'll get back to it. They escaped me right this minute, but I
And
know.
is, on that list, is it delineated what the responses to drug-related incidents are?
No.
Because you're talking about going out and spending money on chemical protective gear,
Yeah.
and I don't see anything in your statistics that would require it. So can we break that out of your statistics somehow?
Well,
In other words, I would like to know, and I think the people in Tuftonboro would like to know, what the rate of incidence is. Are we involved in the opioid epidemic?
yes, we had
Or
2
are we
overdose
not?
deaths last year, one of which
Okay.
was fentanyl,
Right.
which,
Does that fall under incidents?
yes.
So maybe we can be a little more,
But this protective equipment, we're talking, the state was, of course, they buy it at a bigger bulk rate than I am. They did it about $7 a keg.
yeah.
So that's what we're talking.
This is to deal with the kind of thing that, was it in Alexandria that
Exactly.
the officer, when he stopped somebody in a car, ended up ill because of, I guess it's.
But I don't think it
it's
becomes
something-
apparent that we're all involved in this until it becomes a
Yeah.
statistic.
Yeah.
And you're not making it a statistic, so I'd like you to, if you would.
Yeah, I've tried to, I know in the past with the Tuftonboro Times, point out that a lot of our stuff is, even if it's not a drug-related offense, if we have a burglary, it's probably somebody that came to, I mean, I had somebody come to my door this February under very strange circumstances at night when I was home alone, and I believe it had something to do with trying to do a burglary.
Maybe it was the uniform.
No, I wasn't in uniform. I was just sitting quietly with only one light on in the house, and I.
Well, they weren't from around here. I mean, they came to visit the chief of police.
Yeah.
That's,
So I have,
that's strange.
and so there's a lot of this ancillary stuff that goes with.
Right.
I mean, we don't necessarily have that many drug arrests per se, but there's the burglaries, the fraud, the domestics, or the kind of internal strife that we have to sometimes deal with, or the call last week was something like that. So
I wanted to follow up on his comment. The last time you were here, you were going to meet with us with a list of about 12 to 15 community items.
Community policing, yeah.
And whatnot. And of course, the statistics was one of the things I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
Exactly what he's talking about here. But I was kind of waiting for you to come in and see us. I don't know about the other two people, but I have no problem. On Fridays, we have to come in and sign checks and to set, 35 to 45 minutes aside to have a conversation just dedicated to that.
And I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm not against you going out and buying safety equipment.
yeah,
That wasn't my point.
no, I know.
My point is that everything needs certain justification. And,
We're talking maybe $50 worth of stuff.
that's fine. But if you say we're in the middle of an opioid epidemic, prove it to me.
Yeah. Well, we had 2 overdose deaths last year on a
Yeah.
population of 2,400. That's fairly significant on a per capita basis. Although, are we as bad as Manchester? No. Ospey? No. Laconia? No. But
We go to Ospey though. We have mutual aid with Ospey.
yeah, and we have people from town who have overdosed in Ospey.
Right.
That's where we actually had, I think, 3 last year. One of which was a death.
Made it over the line.
Made it over the line. So I mean,
It
to
started
say
in
it's not
Tuftonboro.
here is.
There's a common
I'm not-
denominator.
I know. But you're trying to get me to illustrate it and
Just
explain
illustrate
it.
it on a regular basis. That's
Okay. Although, so, the way, yeah, I know what you mean.
I have to start shaping my glasses.
What would the board like to do as far as the community policing and statistic things? Do you want to dedicate some time?
You want to come see us on Friday morning this week? Talk about that?
How about next week? I'm off. I'm working Friday night. I'm covering a shift for somebody else Friday night.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, next
It's-
Friday's
It's
fine.
summertime
Yeah.
and you're busy,
No,
and it's vacation time.
I think it just, if we set a date,
Yeah.
then it starts the process moving forward.
Yeah.
If we say we're going to get to it, it's just easy to
It's easy to keep
let
pushing
the
it
time
down.
get away. Yep. So that would be the 4th, is that right? 4th of August?
Probably. And don't forget the camps. I mean, there's opportunity there as well. Part of our
Is that the day that
community.
That was,
we're taking
there'd
notes?
be, well, that'd be one of the things too. I did do,
August
It's,
4th.
it's the.
it might have been in May, when I talked to the employees at Baltic, that was one of the things I did. But, well, yeah, I'll, one of the things somebody reached out to me about was doing a, child seat safety program. And I looked into it.
It's involved, isn't it?
It's a 4-day training class, and there's nobody in Carroll County that's certified in it. And they're talking about this fall doing it, but
It's another merit badge.
I know. So they're gonna keep me in mind with, they have one in, because I was like, 4 days. Okay, well, I seem to recall I went to a 1-day one quite a few years back, but apparently it's
Yeah.
not what they
As
do anymore.
like everything else, is
More
much more
complex.
complicated than it used to be.
Yes.
I can never get them on hook.
That's, as you know, I'm in and out of a lot of different town halls, and Gilmanton is doing something. This is a,
Yes, we already have this.
do we?
Yeah.
Okay. How active is it?
We have one person.
Okay.
The paperwork used to be sitting out on the table
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. How, I mean, I remember seeing something on the website a long time ago, but
We had a couple and then they moved
the
away.
benefit is that for people that are living alone, elderly, right? They call in the morning, and then you know they're
Okay,
okay, right? So if they don't call in, then that triggers a visit, correct?
yes.
And so, given the population trend in our community as well as in the state, it would seem to me that more people being involved
Yeah, we had a couple others, and then they moved away. We had one that's on it, she's regular.
Well, why don't you take that?
Yeah,
It may be exactly what you're doing, or similar, might have some ideas that, but I wonder if, since we only have one participant currently, if it's just sort of fallen off of people's radar.
Yeah, typically, and the only other part of that is we have set it for people generally living alone. So if it's like an older couple, you wouldn't necessarily do it because you'd hope that one of the two of them would be able to report if the other one's not. But if it's somebody living alone, is how and so we've only had like the one or two, so.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, you know, somebody else
I
wanted to.
know more than one elderly person in this town that's living alone, and I don't know a lot of people.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You know,
No, I understand that, but it's also voluntary.
It is,
So
right.
it's,
But part of it is.
maybe they don't know.
They don't know, or
Yep.
can be encouraged to get involved. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Have fun.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
We all set to go into review and approval of minutes.
We are.
Okay? Why don't we take July 10 public minutes? Start with the public.
I have some corrections.
Are you on, what day are you on?
July 10th.
Go ahead.
Last paragraph on the first page. Jimmy Beam gave a highway department update. The heavy rainstorm on June 19th caused a lot. So can we add A to lot? On the next page, 1, 2, 3, 4, paragraph down starts with Chairman Wood shared. About halfway through that paragraph, Selectmen Albee moved that the dock is delineated, signage is installed. I'd like that to read, move that the dock be delineated with signage installed that informs the public. Okay, did you follow me?
Yes.
Okay. And that's it for that one.
Anything else, sir? Well,
No, I'm good.
all those in favor of, is there a motion to
So
amend?
moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Let's move to the 9 o'clock minutes for Friday, July 14th.
I've got a couple of corrections on that.
Go ahead.
First paragraph, it involves fixing the loom. Well, I don't think that we're weaving anything, so it's LOAN. And continuing on in that sentence, drainage, parking lot, adding a swell. I think what we wanted to add was a swale. And I'm of two minds, whether that's SWAIL or SWALE. That's what I was leaning towards.
Right.
That's it. For me, I'm sorry.
I wasn't here, so I can't address it one way or the other.
Any other, is there a motion?
I'll move to accept the minutes as corrected.
Is there a second? Aye or yes? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 201, correct?
Yep.
Next is the draft of non-public July 10th at 10:55. I have nothing.
And I have nothing.
No. Move approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we go to the
Signature.
signature. Everyone has seen Jack's file?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a notice of attempt to cut wood, map 42, lot 2, item 7. Is there a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. The next is another notice to intent to cut timber, map 68, block 2, and there's 3 lots, 3, 8, and 9. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. The next is a pre-buy agreement that we talked about for the town of Tuftonboro for $179.9 Carroll County Oil. And it says, Lloyd, please also initial it to changes line 2 that says from July 3rd, 17 to July 2nd, 2018. Next is all gallons are delivered on or after July 3rd instead of October 1st. And number 5 is this agreement and its price ceases on July 2nd, 2018. Has everybody seen this?
Yeah, you see it?
I did.
Is it okay for me to sign it?
Just as an aside, I jokingly mentioned when they sent the first agreement where the offer was made for town employees to buy at the same rate, that we should offer that to everybody in town. And I brought that up to a fellow board member of mine on the school that I'm a board member, the chairman of our board actually, who owns an oil company in North Conway. And he said, I'd do that if the town would purchase oil or sign a contract for oil. I'd guarantee that's the price for everybody in town. So I think next year when we go forward with this, we might want to look a little harder at giving that benefit to the residents as
Sure.
well. They might not take advantage of it, but at least we're trying.
Sure. We need to vote on this again.
No, I think we already did.
Yeah,
Right? You just need to sign it and initial all the changes.
Yep. The next is dated July 14th from the Board of Selectmen, reference Library Capital Reserve, and I'll read it. The Board of Selectmen requests reimbursement for payment made to SMP Architecture for design services regarding the proposed library building pursuant to approved warrant Article 12 from the 2010 town meeting, voted to create a capital reserve account for the purpose of building a new library. And the Board of Selectmen were authorized as agents to expend said funds. The request is for $7,896.75 payable to the town of Tuftonboro. And there's a copy of SMP's bill. Have you folks read this?
Yeah.
Okay, what is your action you'd like to take?
I'll move approval.
I'll second, but I think there needs to be a little more public information.
Go ahead.
In order to explain it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it that the library is holding the funds and we're asking them to pay us? Who's paying us?
The trustees of the trust funds, I believe. Is that what it says?
Well, the library capital reserve fund money is what's being requested.
Right.
The selectmen are agents to expend out of that capital reserve fund, but the fund is held by the trustees of the trust fund. So this is payment for the design concept work that's being done on the library addition, correct?
But it's not in our common government capital reserve fund. It's in a trust, under the care of the trustees of the trust fund. So it isn't something that we could have not sent a bill for.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure I know what it is. This is the check and
Every
balance.
in every occasion that we do work through a warrant article,
Yes.
we're not going to send a bill or receive a bill.
Just out of a capital reserve account, right?
Okay.
So there's a motion to
I'll second.
the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Go ahead, sign it. today's the 24th.
It is. Summer fast food.
We have in front of us a notice of appointment, accompanying letter to appoint John Cameron to the planning board. Term expires June 2020.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Let's go to Selectmen's updates. Who would like to go first?
I have one item. The Old Home Days Committee is meeting tomorrow night, right here in this room at 6:30 PM. Old Home Days, as a refresher for everybody, are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 25th, 26th, and 27th of August. So we're coming down into the final stretch and getting everything lined out for the weekend, and participation by any and all at tomorrow's meeting as well. This is not an exclusive group by any means.
Do you have anything?
I spent some time in the welfare office, and I'd be happy to relate those things to you in the proper meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also spent a good deal of time on that contract with the fire department and the ambulance, so I appreciate it if we can come to an agreement
Okay.
on that.
I've read your report that you worked with Diane. It's very cogent, and thank you for working on that.
Cogent.
I have a couple of
Try
things.
harder next time.
No, you do a nice job.
Enlightening, maybe.
We discussed the wharf repairs at River Reach on Lake Street, and I've researched. Our share is $1,774.17. And if I remember correctly, did Jim Bean say, yes, we can take that out of docks and bridges?
My understanding was, yes, we can.
Okay.
And looking at docks and bridges, that's probably where it ought to come out.
Yes. Karen, can you just double check and make sure that there was no misunderstanding? Do you know what we're talking about?
My question on that is what we had that money budgeted for this year. My recollection is there are some expenditures, like a new bubbler for Melvin Wharf, that were in that line item and wouldn't have been expended yet because it isn't all yet. So
I just want to make sure before we lock this in.
Yep.
And before I tell Dave that, yep, we have the money.
Right.
We treat the department head correct.
Right.
Yeah, we've got $2,375.
Yeah, and I know, I think Jack had something in there on docks and bridges, so before we...
Jack
Parsons.
Parsons.
He handles the bubblers and puts them in.
Excuse me. I gotta see Jack tomorrow, I'll ask him.
Okay. The next thing is that on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, I met with the Mirror Lake Protective Association. I thanked them for all of their efforts, and they thanked us, and it's been a fine marriage, and it's continuing. I showed them the pictures of the debris. Got a call from Larry Gill, and he left a message here. They've located the pieces, have moved them around where Jim Bean can pick them up by the boat ramp. And can you call Jim and have them do that either tomorrow or Wednesday? Clay will take the debris.
Yep.
So everything worked well there.
I did spend some time with Clay up at the transfer station. We got to demolition notice. And it's becoming more and more apparent that scales would really pay for themselves at this point.
Did he tell you about the contact he's made with the fellow portable scales from the state?
Yeah.
He seems to have a pretty good idea there to, and he, knowing Clay, he wants to get all the information, so.
And I don't know that that saves us any money as far as, I mean, you have to have them constantly recertified.
Yes.
And then you have to have an operator recertified.
Those are portable,
Yeah.
but what it does is it gives us some idea of how close the estimates are, so.
Well, the platform scale is easier to use.
Yeah.
Just drag onto it, okay? Much more costly to buy.
Yeah.
A little more skill involved in using the portables.
Yeah.
But what scaling does is it gives you the opportunity to equitably assign the costs associated with that stuff to the people who are bringing it in, rather than saying, yeah, I think you got a pickup load and this is about what it is. And, oh, this is heavier or not quite as heavy, and trying to factor that, then there isn't any question.
What Clay is struggling with is, do we spend $70,000 for scales and the manpower and all that to make $17,000? And he's very good. Every time he puts a full-timer on or changes something, he gives that information for us to make the decision, so.
Yeah, I don't know that the price revenue spread's gonna be quite that great, but we're sending it out at a tonnage rate, so
Yes.
we can't bill at any other rate.
Right.
And we're estimating our costs currently. And,
Yep.
and there are other uses for scales as well. I mean, there's not a big market for it, but there's still a public use for it.
While we're talking about the transfer station, I reviewed with Clay the progress of dealing with Spectrum about upgrading the computer cable to that building,
Upgrading or installing.
or whatever the word
There
is.
isn't one there now.
Correct. I was wondering, does the board approve that Clay and I follow up on a specific issue? And if it means locating and meeting with the individual that can actually make a decision, we'll do it. We won't sign any contracts, but we'll move the process along. As I understand it, what it means is getting a wire from here to here, and other than Karen, no one returns any phone calls to Clay or anybody else. So I'd like to follow up on this, if I could, with Clay.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of our Fairpoint or whatever the
Yes.
current cable company. I don't think it's not Fairpoint, it's Time Warner.
Spectrum.
Yeah.
Spectrum. Speaking of meetings, our health insurance carrier wants to come in for a meeting about next year.
Yep.
Do you want to have a full-blown board meeting, or do you want to come in and just talk to one of us in the staff, or how do you generally do that?
We've done it both ways in the past 6 years. What are you comfortable with, Bill?
I think having a work session, having them come in and meet with the board,
Yep.
then we can explore.
And what is the carrier? Which carrier? Primex?
Yeah, I believe it's Primex.
We've met with them before.
No, Primex is,
No,
no,
it's
Primex is
the-
property insurance.
It's the
It's health trust.
Health trust?
Yeah,
Interlocal
local
trust.
health trust, yeah.
interlocal.
Yeah.
The other thing is, with the road agent, should we follow up on, I thought you asked a lot of good questions and didn't
Well,
get any
my
answers.
understanding was he's coming back next week, or whenever we meet again, is that, on these bi-monthly meetings, we're gonna review things. I've noticed that there's been some mowing going on. He ostensibly cut that mowing budget by $8,000. I don't know if that comports with what he's done.
I have no problem if you guys are gonna be in signing checks and he'd like to move it up to Friday for 35 or 40 minutes, that's fine. We don't meet for 2 weeks, and we're
We're
getting,
off again next week? It's like a part-time
It's a-
job.
Yeah, it's fifth Monday.
unless you wanna meet on the 5th Monday.
No.
You got a garage to build.
I got plenty to do. I mean, I don't mind scheduling a meeting for this Friday, if you want
Yeah.
to put something together.
Yeah.
Okay. Karen, is it 9 o'clock a good time?
Yeah, nice.
Sure.
What time are you meeting with the chief?
That's the following week.
Oh, excuse
We're
me,
not
that's the
meeting with him.
following.
Yeah. He's
So
working.
And it will be a work session on his
28th.
on his budget, and if he has one or two items he'd like to bring up, I have no problem listening.
Public meetings.
Don't be late.
I'm always late. You see a watch?
Clay
It's done by the sun.
Clay contacted me that a contractor was asking for some prices on items. He was cleaning up a property on 107 Union Wharf Road. He's already started cleaning. Clay said, bring the stuff up that goes in the compactor. In the past, Clay and Jack have worked with landowners that we've asked to clean up their properties. Can he continue to negotiate, or
You know,
think about
are we gonna pay a lawyer, or are we gonna pay, you know, to get rid of some stuff from the transfer station? I'd certainly rather keep it in-house.
Right.
So if we can avoid legal action and get something cleaned up with notice.
I mentioned to Clay that as one selectman, I have no power, but in the past, he and Jack have worked together with the board's permission to accomplish exactly what.
I mean, I don't see it as anything different than when I go in the cemetery, the Ham Cemetery Road, which is on my property, and I find trash in there that somebody's
You
dropped.
pick it up.
I pick it up and take it to the transfer station.
Yes.
If there's a fee involved, I've never been charged for a television or a refrigerator, so.
The other thing is, remember the correspondence we got about from Eileen Scarponi and Chris Bolt about damaged utility poles?
Yeah.
Well, I started to pay attention as I ride around town with the fire department, and I'm absolutely amazed how many are in disrepair or broken off and chained together and all of that. I'm trying to think, what do we do?
Well, their advice was to have our emergency management guy contact the phone companies guy where we have a pole that is hazardous, and we have several that we pass that, you know, are kind of cobbled back together. I mentioned it to Chief Thompson, and he was like, because she said, well, they ought to know the local contact, and it's like, yeah, well, we don't. So, but I think that's the appropriate approach to take first is,
You know, without even trying, I
Get all
counted
local.
20 that aren't typical straight up or are in pieces. I don't know that they're unsafe and gonna come down. I look at the one that was on Durgan Road, and I'm going, that doesn't make sense, but hey, it stayed up during the winter, so
yeah.
maybe they know.
Well, I think we have several examples in town that you can make the case are unsafe. Poles that have been broken and bolted back together and still have either cable or telephone on them. And I think as an entree into getting these dealt with, we need to.
Yeah,
I
it'd
thought
be
that-
interesting to see how you establish ownership of a pole. Because half the time that I've been dealing with them, it's the telephone company's pole, or
Yes.
it's the power company's pole.
And then they
Yeah,
lease it
Well,
out.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah,
wants to
but the
take it.
poles all have a tag on them that has the owner's.
When the fire department
So-
goes in, there's a pole down, they're able to get a name and a number and know which company to call.
Yeah,
So-
maybe.
And I'm thinking to myself, there's 3 ways of doing it. Get someone to ride around town and take inventory, have Jim Bean and his crew do inventory, or have a police cruiser over a week as they're doing all the streets in town.
And when I talked with Adam about this, he's aware of a number around town for the same reason. They go make calls and they see these things. And
Right.
so I think we just need to take that first step, which is to,
Yeah.
and it would be the same people that they contact when somebody knocks a pole in.
I am aware of the other issue, because we chased the utility companies 5 years. Company who owns the pole moves it away from the building and puts their wire up. Now try to get the other 2 companies to come and just rewire it. And they're gonna do it because there's no emergency, they're gonna do it when they want it. And how do you get them there without turning them off?
Yeah, that's more problematic. Yeah.
Okay, that's also, I'm all set.
Well done.
Yes. Next, we're going to the green folder, correspondence.
The Z-Quil folder.
Our classmate B.G. Hodges says, "Hey, thanks for all the work on our street. It looks and drives great." It reminds me of the old ad, Happy Motoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's quite the artist.
That's a photography thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Photoshop.
Island Day results went off as scheduled. This is from Clay. A lot of boats from islands in Tuftonboro. We filled a 30-yard open container and a dual axle trailer and a dump truck with items. We got the 30-yard container for free. The cost of the material won't be known until mid-August when we get the bill, but it should be around $5 or $6 by weight by his experience. We also paid $600 to Tuftonboro Development to provide the dual axle trailer, 2 dump trucks to take the recyclables back to the transfer station, and the labor to unload the boats and pack the material. Revenue in, $405. 2 days later, the container hadn't been moved, and I told Clay about it, and of course he spoke to the appropriate person. But that morning I was there at 7:15, and 2 boats came in with furniture and with windows and stacked them, and there was no room. And again, it was Frankie Tranchita, Tuftonboro Development, that Clay called, and they went down and picked the stuff up. So thank you to all the people involved.
Yeah.
Okay. This must be the piece of paper from Chris Sununu, commendation to Andy.
For the emergency response,
Yep.
yeah.
There's a number of things in here that are just normal FEMA stuff and driveway permits to help you out. I won't read them. You folks have paperwork to read here?
Yep.
Okay. We have to go into non-public, but before we do, is there any other business? Whose hand was up first?
I'll defer to the ladies.
The ladies?
I have an inspo. You all.
Go ahead.
You said the revenue in was 405.
Yes.
You said it was $600 for the dual axle trailers.
Yep. I think it was $1,200 in expenses.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't give you the total.
Thanks.
Another lady had her hand up. Go ahead.
I'm interested in the discussion of ambulance contracts, and I assume that's what those were. It sounded like it. You know, the pitch was made to the townspeople for a used ambulance to carry emergency response equipment in lieu of getting a bigger response truck that would have been ginormous in order to handle all of the equipment that they want for emergency response. And, oh, by the way, it would be a backup in case there were situations where stewards couldn't provide an ambulance fast enough, or a second ambulance was needed and stewards didn't have one available. And, you know, the department is now traveling out of town to respond to ambulance calls. I don't know why that evolution. I mean, they're not rescue calls for that responder equipment. They're ambulance calls. Hey, we had a motorcycle and bike thing here. We need an ambulance and stewards can't come.
I think it's falling under that rubric of mutual aid. I think that's.
I think that's a mistake.
I think that's what's going on.
Well, it's not what was pitched to us. It's not what the people voted on. It was for here, for us to be sure we always had ambulance coverage.
But the contract that we're reviewing, or that I've reviewed, and the other 2 selectmen are reviewed, involves collections for use of that ambulance.
Right.
And that was done, has been being done in-house, not very efficiently, and now
The last time we had this discussion, there wasn't any billing being done.
Right.
So it's good if we're doing it that we're billing. I wonder why we just can't figure out the cost and send a bill to the town that requested it, rather than go through all the malarkey of becoming an ambulance company.
No,
Well, I think this is actually-
These are transport bills, all right? If the Tuftonboro ambulance has to transport me, for instance, okay, to a hospital or wherever, they bill for that, just like Stewart's would. And the billing has to be done with the right codes and all that, because most of that gets reimbursed by insurance. If it isn't billed correctly, it doesn't get covered. So the billing that we're talking about are transport costs, just like what our contract ambulance does.
So it can't be just billed to the town, it has to go through a service.
Well,
Unless we had
my understanding is
trained people to do it.
all transport gets billed to the person that's transported, not to a town.
Well, I know that's what the ambulance companies do, but we're not an ambulance company.
Well,
No, but if we,
Well, maybe we are now, but, you know, we weren't at the beginning of the
this
year.
is a good way to avoid becoming an ambulance company. You know, all we have now currently is the vehicle and the people driving it around. Once we start employing people to do billing and employing people to dispatch and do all the rest of that, now we become an ambulance service.
Well, aren't we paying the
That's-
people to be out there responding?
Well, we're paying people to respond, but that's a lower level of involvement. So
Okay,
I think the contract's a good thing rather than a bad thing. I'd rather have that contract than hire a full-time billing clerk and an additional employee.
That would be a cost that would be part of the ambulance service. And I don't have an objection if we're gonna run an ambulance service, but it needs to be up front, and the people need to know that this is what's happening, because it's not what we voted on. It's not what was presented to us. And then there's a corollary to this that's been bothering me for a while, is the airboat. It's traveling all over the state, it seems like. You know, it's highly dangerous, the work they do, going down to Rattlesnake Island in the middle of the winter, to Meredith Neck, Moultonboro Neck, Tamworth, Sandwich, Wakefield, wherever there's a need for a fireboat, let's go. We should be getting bills out for that too. Because nobody else has got one, and no one else needs to get one, because we're going all over the state, paying our guys to get out there and do this. And it's dangerous stuff. And how much money, every year we've got to repair that boat, several $1,000s a year, to re-rivet it or whatever. It's ridiculous that we're the only airboat and we're going everywhere.
In a perfect world, everyone would play at the same rate.
Right.
I mean, the whole idea behind mutual aid, in my mind, is that, you know, we've got an airboat, you've got a gasoline cleanup.
Is that
crew. I
happening?
don't know what the differences are.
Is that happening? Are we
I don't
getting
know.
equal?
I think we are.
I don't think we are. I don't think we have the galls.
I don't know, but my understanding is the way we got in the airboat business in Tuftonboro is we had a bad fire one winter on an island property, and we were able to use West Ossipe's smaller airboat to help transport equipment and personnel out there that mitigated the damage and prevented adjacent properties from burning down. And we recognized the benefit, and the town bought one. And I'm with you. Every town that has island property ought to step up to the plate and deal with that. And
We should be sending them bills.
Or they
And we
should-
don't have mutual aid contracts.
No,
Come
there's no
on.
such thing as a mutual
Do we
aid
have
contract.
any written agreement with any other town about what we're providing and what they're providing? So that's bogus.
I think we do have a mutual aid agreement, all right? I haven't seen it.
We
but
just
that's
got
my-
elected to the Ossipee Valley
Right.
Mutual Aid Society. I don't know what that is.
What is any of
It's
that?
secret handshakes, but, I mean, we
What
do
is it,
have,
Lloyd? You should know. You're on the fire
we
department.
do have more islands than all but one other town. So we do have a responsibility to those people.
Well, that's
But I'm
fine.
not gonna limit our responsibility, you know, sort of like the public education conversation. It's important that everybody gets educated, not just your people. I mean, we are in a larger society, and so we have an airboat, let's let our friends borrow it.
They're not borrowing it, we're providing it, and we're
I know.
servicing it, and we're paying for all of it.
Okay, who was next?
I have on this
Gotta be
subject,
Max.
You had your hand up and,
I did, but I can defer to Max for the time being.
okay, go ahead.
just on this subject, a few weeks ago or last month, when Adam was in giving his update at that time, he did bring up the mutual aid agreements with you, prompted partly, I believe, because I had asked him to see them. And there is nothing in them about the ambulance because the ambulance is new and the agreements haven't been updated for quite some time. There's also nothing about the airboat in them. And I had asked you at that meeting if you would please, or I believe I did, if I didn't I should have, asked you to please update those agreements. And Chip, I remember you saying, you might not remember it, but I remember you saying,
I'm old.
I remember you saying that that was something that should be done.
Yeah.
And then anecdotally, my uncle is a fire chief in Biddeford, and I spoke to him about it a few weeks ago. And he said, well, Biddeford obviously is different from us because it's a city, and it's a regional hub. They have agreements with every single town that borders them, and every single town that borders a town that borders them. And that's, where they provide mutual assistance. And it's regularly updated, and it's very specific. This is what we will do, and I guess if it's not in there, they're not going to do it. And so I really think that we should have agreements with the towns that border us by land and the towns that are on the lake that we might send our airboat to. Not because we don't want to help people, it's not about that. We want to be clear about what's going to happen, especially when we're sending our employee, the town fire and rescue people into a situation that's dangerous, especially on the lake. So I think that would be to the benefit of the town.
Who do I go?
She waited
Who
patiently.
do I go next?
Please take the lead.
Have we gotten bills from other towns when they have equipment that we don't have, or when they have more people at emergency giving us service than Tuftonboro?
Not since I've been a
has either?
selectman.
I've never
They
heard of
come- When do they come here?
Maybe what we ought to do is,
it. Let's hope they're there
Burn
for us.
something down and see what happens.
maybe we ought
Yeah.
to have this on
Let's
the
just
agenda.
say Tuftonboro won't.
Maybe we ought to have this on the agenda when the chief's here and, he's the department head, he's the expert that can tell you what he has for paperwork and what he doesn't. And if that's on the agenda and that's the topic, he's gonna bring his filing case with him, so, right? Now, some other people had their hands up and I wanna go,
I was alluding to Leanne over in the corner.
And then
She was the
Zion
last
wanted
woman
to
to
say
show up.
something.
Again, ladies.
Okay. Not that I want to bring this up, but planning board, due to the fact that the board of selectmen didn't reappoint Chris, and Tony Triolo and Fenton Varney resigned, I need guidance as staff as to how to proceed.
Okay, so I think we have a meeting scheduled for
Thursday,
Thursday, right? So I think we
but
have
if
our
we don't
meeting.
have a quorum, we can't have a meeting.
So I think we schedule a
Well, you
meeting.
can still have a meeting without a quorum, you just can't make a decision without a
Right.
quorum.
Okay, so then we take it
Right,
to
so,
that
and
avenue.
you can have a meeting to organize, like he says, but you can't, do legal business.
To organize, okay.
I mean,
So,
You can have a meeting.
okay. So we deal with it then between, and you will, so I'm assuming as Board of Selectmen representative that you will speak on behalf of the selectmen and that will be their decisions? Or,
I'll be happy to address anything, yeah.
Sure.
Put the agenda out, and we'll have our meeting. I don't know what all you have on the agenda for Thursday, but we'll deal with it as we go forward.
okay. Okay. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to apologize to the general public for my previous outburst. It was rude and uncalled for. Selectman Mackerson, Selectman Wood, in my calling for your immediate resignations, I'd like to quote Oliver Cromwell's address to Parliament, whereby he said, "You have been sat here too long for any good you may have been doing. Depart, I say, and let us be done with you. For the love of God, go." Thank you. How's that distinguished teacher?
You're gonna be long. This is addressed to Karen. You sent the letter out to Spectrum. Any response? I don't mind paying the postage if you develop 50 letters and send it to the whole damn company, okay? People who are in charge. They ignored it again. I'm sure they received it.
It was signed for me.
Okay, oh, terrific. Okay, no response. You know, get a new company, I guess. Thank you, that's all I got.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Separate issue than what I said before. Despite the fireworks today, I hope that you will continue to have more public comments. I think it's been very healthy. I appreciate, Lloyd, that you have public comment at the beginning. You often will open it up during the meeting, and then you have public comment afterwards. I think that that helps a lot, and I think that if you had approached the issue with Chris Sawyer differently and not in secret during an illegal non-public meeting, because what you did was you made that decision in non-public meeting, despite your previous, earlier in this meeting you said that you didn't. Unfortunately, Chip, you let slip that you guys had a vote. You said that you voted. And you didn't vote in public, so that means that you voted in non-public, and that was illegal. Or you voted in a non-meeting, which would also be illegal. So what I'm saying is, if you had just done it in public, there wouldn't have been such an explosion of anger, because the way that you have operated is very underhanded and secretive. You have you always go to the more secretive way of doing something. Even by example of Bill being unwilling to name whoever said that you were willfully violating 91A, which I guess was probably Guy, I don't know.
No, actually, Bash, you know exactly who said that.
Well, why don't you tell me? Why does it have to be secret?
I think we're, a better use of terms, and from my perspective, on what's happened in the last 3 or 4 months that I've been here, is more private, not secret. We tend to err, and I'd just as soon have no non-public meetings at all, and just let the chips fall where they may. But if you want the town's legal bill to go through the roof, that's what would happen. So we tend to err on the side of protecting people's privacy and their, personalities, as opposed to, and we've discussed any number of things in non-public meetings because it would affect a person's reputation or because it would affect a person standing in the community. And we tend to err on the side of protecting that.
Yes,
and
you
maybe
err
you
on
need
the
to
side
know
of secrecy.
But
And
you
that-
need to come out of that meeting and make your decision outside of the meeting, public. You don't just write a letter, have a letter written, and then you all sign it, but you didn't make a decision. That's baloney. You made a decision by getting the letter out there and all of you signing it. The decision needs to be made in public.
Right.
By law, it needs to be made in public. Now, I know that I had the right to wait till everybody was gone or come in tomorrow and come back and go through the correspondence file to see what you actually signed, or the signature file, to see what it is you signed, because you didn't give any details. It'd be much better if you just said, we're sending a letter to Chris Sawyer, we decided not to reappoint her. That would be in the public. And that's what you need to do, not hide things.
What vote is he referring to, Chip?
You made the decision not to reappoint her.
Excuse me. Chip, what vote did you make for that?
I'm not certain that, I mean, I may have mischaracterized anything as a vote, but I know that we did not vote not to reappoint. I know that a discussion was had, and who's ready to sign this reappointment? And there was not a majority or...
There was no reappointment to sign, was there?
There was no reappointment to sign.
And my recollection is, I said, the person's not re-upping, can we please send a letter of thanks? Is that your recollection?
Which is a decision, which should have been noted in the minutes if the minutes were released.
Right, it should have been
If
done
they
in
were
public.
sealed, then you can't state that, but I'm just so that people understand.
I said that right here in the meeting.
No, you didn't. Not in public.
You said, well, let's sign this letter to thank someone.
I didn't use your name, I apologize.
You didn't say what it was all about.
Okay.
Okay. That's what this is.
I am aware that you have been trying to be more open. You've been unsealing some minutes that have been sealed. I'm appreciative of that. However, on May 1st, or actually I guess the meeting before that, you unsealed some minutes, and then Karen realized that they had never been sealed in the first place. And on May 1st, you held 3 different votes to seal the minutes from March 22nd, 2016, July 29th, 2016, and July 8th, 2016. And then you unsealed them with redactions. Just after that meeting on May 1st, I sent Karen an email explaining that, unfortunately, although I understood that you were well-intentioned and that you were trying to be more open, and I appreciated that you cannot seal minutes if it's more than 72 hours after the end of that specific.
It's not an accurate statement, sir. So let's put that to rest, okay? That's your opinion.
Wow.
That's not my opinion, but you know, let's just leave that behind us, okay? It hasn't happened again, has it?
It's happened on several occasions. I'd like to read to you from RSA 91.3.
Can we move
Minutes
on?
and decisions reached in non-public session shall be publicly disclosed within 72 hours of the meeting, unless by recorded vote of 2/3 of the members present taken in public session, it is determined that divulgence of the information likely would affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, or render the proposed action ineffective, or pertain to terrorism, more specifically to matters relating to the preparation for avoiding terrorism. Statement that you just made was false.
Can I say something?
You may not seal minutes if 72 hours have gone by. Period. That's not my opinion. I just read to you from the law.
Next. I've been courteous and let you raise your voice and speak.
Yes,
Okay.
and I appreciate that you let us.
Can we all agree to take a deep breath here and to move on to other issues? Please?
I'm not going to move on from your continual violation of right to know, which I understand is not always intentional.
Okay. Fair
Okay.
statement then. Okay, thank you for speaking.
Yeah.
Okay? We have some,
Yeah.
Are we going into non-public?
yes.
We're going to non-public.
Could I ask you to please cite the specific
Yes.
paragraph in accordance with the law?
Max, can I put my glasses on so I can read it?
But you have to be here, you have to stay. You can't leave. You have to sit out there and stay and come back in, because we're gonna go back into public session when we get out of that. And we're probably gonna seal the minutes. And whether or not you believe that we went back into public session or not is up in the air unless you're here, so stay around.
I trust that
The
Karen
chair-
takes very good minutes.
She may not be here, she may
Guys.
not be able to take them.
The chair needs a motion to go into non-public session for RSA 91-A3, Roman 2, small letter E, to review attorney's invoices for right-to-know request.
Oh, boy.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
A
Is
second.
there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks for being here. Call if you get work. I'm sorry, I can't hold it together. Only this is- It's 6:20, for God's sake.
6:20.
Get my nap. Max makes me want to, demands I remember shit.
Fair.
Yeah, we need to go roll call that.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, who seconded it?
Oh, I'm coming back.
Chip did.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sure.
those in favor say aye. Wood,
Aye.
yes?
Ferguson, yes.
I'll be yes. With reservations.